Hello, and welcome to Mayday Roleplay. Thank you for joining us as we come together to tell stories of ghosts, beloved characters created by their storytellers who have met their final chapters. We here come to bear witness to last impressions and learn to say goodbye. This is the game known as Ghostfi. But before we turn our next page, some housekeeping is in order. We'd like to thank our handler-level Patreon contributors. Their involvement allows us here at Mayday to continue to produce and tell stories for your viewing pleasure. So thank you to Advance War Sammy, OG Pan, Bimble Ward, Cameron S., Kirby Stubble, Moria, Brandon C., Jonathan M., and Ren. If you too would like to contribute to Mayday, be sure to find us on Patreon. You'll get access to early releases, art, bi-monthly games run by Mayday, and our Discord server built around our wonderful community there. And expect VOD exclusives of runs of Ghostfi by Mayday members and a campaign diary in the near future. If you haven't heard, we have completed the third season of our Delta Green series Doomed to Repeat, which is now available alongside our extensive catalog of completed seasons and shows on our YouTube channel for VODs and everywhere else you get your podcasts for audio-friendly versions. And be sure to join us bi-weekly on livestream for our Vampire the Masquerade campaign, Vegas by Night. And as always, find us on all major social media platforms and our website for updates on future content and other news. We would like to thank the wonderful guests who have come to tell stories with us, top-tier creatives in the actual play and TTRPG scene, gifted storytellers, and their beloved characters. So be sure to follow all their amazing works on their description listed on their episodes. Ghostfi is a game about death and grief and the complicated lives of complex characters. This actual play was intended for mature audiences, so please take care of yourself and be aware. Our players are under the guidance of safety tools. An X card can be employed at any time. And with that, let us begin. Hello, my name is Eli, and I will be playing Cyote Sandfoot, the Great Nomad of Eberron. The journey is long, and the journey is wide, and the journey is full. And for a nomad, one that traverses the entirety of Kavar, which is also known as Eberron, this is what we live for, to put feet to earth, to traverse through the world and to experience it to its completeness, to its fullity. And even in our final moments, when death comes for us and we can no longer move on, that is simply a part of the journey. We are meant to do these things, and we are meant to move on to the next world, to the next part of what we just call the journey. And when that occurs for Cyote, when all manners of sensation fall away, all the sights and sounds and sensations of this earthly world fade into the nothingness, we're always reminded that there is something that comes from nothing. And we move, and when sense kind of returns to Cyote, when brought into this this new world of nothingness, we are always reminded that a lot of something can come out of nothing. And this is what is known as the manifestation, a place in which a soul comes to rest and reside when their time on the mortal plane is done, and they can come and find refuge and rest in a constructed space just designed for them. And for Cyote, this manifestation is a large tent deep in the heart of the Blade Desert. And the sand all around us can be heard flecking and shaking the inside of this tent as Cyote kind of opens it up and walks inside, as if second nature to her to be able to come into a place to seek refuge from this ongoing sandstorm outside. And what she's met with is just a variety of mats and hides that have been gently placed on the floor, top a cloth, and a variety of textiles and assortments of things that span across all of Kavar. An eclectic spread that just reminds her that the world is so vast and different, and it's always good to pick up pieces where you go, to be able to remind you of the uniqueness that comes with the beauty, comes with being a part of the long journey. Places from the Eldeen, places far and wide, just all manners of many that feels homely to her. And Cyote, when entering into this space, Cyote is a shifter, a person that is humanoid in nature, but possesses the unique qualities of an animal. And for her, it's the coyote. So her face has this spread of browns and whites that kind of mask around and frame these golden eyes. Her hair is grayish in color, that's intricately braided, and falls intricately braided with like beads and feathers and all sorts of other embellishments that were made from bone that she made herself and painted during the nights when she had where she held watch and watched over the fire and added colors from dry herbs and animal fat that she would make. Around her neck is this very thick scarf that kind of is used to keep the dust and the dirt out during long rides. A short blue shirt that's held together by pieces of leather armor, and this haremish style kind of pant leg that cuffs at the ankles, where and with no shoes to be worn, as touching earth is a far better feeling than that of boots or any other type of protective footwear. On her back is a glaive and a bow, the weapons of choice, but the most unique things that Cyote kind of holds on is these just series of very intricately placed tattoos that run across her arms, and you can see it kind of spreading into where would most likely be on her parts of her body that are covered and even down to her legs, but what was more intricately made on the top of her arms kind of spreads out to these just empty spaces with just that looks like they were in preparation to be filled at some point, but never were. And the last notable tattoo is the one that's kind of on her, that stretches from the lower part of her lip down her chin, a mark that symbolizes that she is known here as a nomad, a leader of people, and one that was supposed to do such a task. And this place is big enough to fill a multitude of people. It's almost as if families and community is meant to be here. The amount of places in which people can rest are kind of made known, and the tables are spread out as if many can be seated there, and gives all manner of sense that this is supposed to house multitudes. But as Cyote kind of looks around at every corner of it, there's nothing more than emptiness and the howl of the wind outside from the Blade Desert. And there's a bit of fear that kind of fills the air for a moment, that one hoped that one would not find themselves so alone at this part of this journey. One felt that they could be reunited again, and yet there's no one here. And in that quick moment of fear comes the pangs of familiarity, a sensation that someone has occupied space here, that there is something or someone who has entered into this tent and has brought with them a level of comfort and ease that I don't think Cyote ever thought that they would feel again. And when Cyote turns around, what she sees is her father, Braun Goldentail, the person that she looked for guidance, for support, who was teaching her the things that needed to be learned for the journey ahead, for when she took up the mantle of responsibility to carry on her task and purpose for herself. And he's a man that stands much taller than Cyote's own 6-foot frame, and he has just this very long goldenish hair that seems to almost come around all the way like a mane, broad-chested, and wearing a similarly blue-colored shirt and leather armor, and just occupies so much space given how he was. And he smiles at Cyote, wide, warm, just as he always did. He was an intimidating man when he needed to be, but in actuality, he was a man with a lot of heart and a lot of love, and could be ever so gentle when that was required. And Cyote approaches him, and they embrace, putting their foreheads together and breathing deep, taking in this moment together where and to have an opportunity to not feel alone. And after that greeting, Braun kind of goes, takes a seat amongst the mats and kind of gestures for Cyote to come and sit down. And she does. And with that, we'll go ahead and pull our first card. The Six of Clubs. Clubs are about the self, a personal affliction. And the Six of Clubs represents something out of your control. The Endworld Mountains near Kabara was a place that Cyote kind of stopped going to in life, stopped treading around that region after that day. It was supposed to be an opportunity to prove oneself, to take on a rite of passage. It's something ever so simple, a hunt. But it was important because for a nomad to lead a people, a nomad is supposed to provide. And that symbol of provision comes in the act of being able to feed people. And Cyote remembers that day and where she set out in the early morning with a bow, and that was it, and a blessing by her father and those of the band to travel safely, to bring back something worth bringing back. And she did. And she spent the greater part of that day looking for something to bring home to feed her people, to prove that she was absolutely capable of doing that. And with carrying a whole stag on her back, she returned home thinking that it was going to be a time of celebration. But it wasn't, because on her return, she came home to tents burning and so much silence. And all the people in the world that she loved most were gone. And it was so beyond her control of the events that took place there. In the way that others who took on that kind of action towards them, the members of the Silver Flame who disliked folk and there was nothing that could be done. It was just now her alone with the only other who survived. And it set this new journey for her, a nomad without a people, a nomad without a home. And it was so beyond her control that I think it's been hard to shake in the end. gonna roll my d4 for this. And of course it is a 1. So 1 here is an absolute failure, which means that for coyotes, for this tether will be a will be a 1 to my failed progress and an automatic earning of spite. And I think what it really comes down to that makes it so difficult was that of all the things Cyote loved most, she loved her people. These were many families that came together to share this collective mission to travel the world, to be of the world, to walk the world for forever, essentially. And they were good people, and they loved her very much as she loved them. And it is so unfair that the ideology of another, the zealousy of another, can do such incredible harm when that is not even her own purpose. And I think what's worse of it all is that the journey teaches us not to retaliate in that way, that vengeance is not something we seek, that the journey will bring it forth and will satisfy it in its time. So to go off the road and to seek it for yourself was not something that could be done. And that Cyote would spend the eternity of her life remaining on a path and staying true to that path the best she could, and not get justice for a people who I think deserved it. And that's such a heavy burden to bear when one chooses to stand tall against an adversity that was far out of their control, who would grow to have the means to do that, but in the end chooses not to. And even now, in the reflection, it just hurts to know that maybe something more could have been done, but in the end, it just left so much suffering, and it's just so incredibly hard to let go. But we return to the manifestation, to the howling winds of outside from the Blade Desert, to the tent filled with the eclectic spread of the world of Eberron, of trinkets and furniture and textiles and all sorts of accoutrements to care for one to rest and relax and reside. And Cyote looks on to her father, who sits there with that same wide smile on his face and expresses a level of empathy and openness and deep understanding and compassion for what is happening, to bearing witness to Cyote in these moments and seeing this with her. And Cyote isn't alone. And with that, we will pull our second card. 7 of spades. Spades deal with items, personal things we carry on us. 7 is also a power card known as a wager card, which means that if one has spite, they are able and willing to they're able to share that spite or bet on that spite in order to get rid of it. But if they fail, they must add for how much they wager. And I think for me, I am going to wager my 1 spite here. On top of it all, might as well go big or go home. But the 7 of spades is an item hidden away in a drawer or closet. And unfortunately, there are no closets or drawers in which Cyote's life kind of circles around. Cyote, being a more nomadic by existence, never had such things. But there is an item, I think, that is very fitting. One that she keeps on her person, deep in one of her satchel bags. And that item is a small, beaten up tin, weathered by time and travel. It's and the words cached, kind of etched very plainly on the front of it. And what's in this tin is something that was given to her by a druid known as Erok. Long after losing her family, Cyote, in grief, crossed paths with this Kalishtar druid and helped him. And in that help, they built a sort of friendship. And in that friendship, Cyote became open about where they were in their journey and the level of grief that was kind of felt. And in sympathy, this druid gave her these herbal tabs made of lilac and mugwort and enriched by magic, in which one could create a door. And that door led to the plane of dreams, Dalcor. And one had the freedom to be able to build out of endless dream space the things that they wanted most. And Cyote would lean into this temptation, almost being consumed by it, to lucid dream in a place in which she could build all of the things that she longed for and yearned for and couldn't have. The memories that would ache her heart so much. She built all the places in the journey and filled it with the faces of the people she missed most, and would spend a considerable time there. And it wasn't until she met her adventuring party and it wasn't until the other person that survived with her and confronting it at a certain point in her life did she realize that how how I guess irresponsible it was to live a life such in such a fantasy that that prioritizing this grief became just a constant, and utilizing this herbal magic just became a crutch that she couldn't really let go of, and it took a lot of strength to overcome it and to put it so far away. And but she did, because she needed it to. She needed to do that, and eventually she would. Whew. Yeah. Let's roll that dice. Oh, well, hey, I rolled a 4, which is an absolute success, which means an absolute success means that I will be able to remove that one spite that I had. And I will also gain 1 automatic to my success, which is great. I think what success looks like here ultimately is that fantasy was met with reality, and the reality of it was one of the many lessons that Cyote kind of had to learn in their journey, was that love is a powerful thing, a beautiful thing, and it's so hard to overcome love that is lost, essentially. But love has this incredible way of repurposing itself so that it can be found in others. And she did find that in others, in the people who she would come to adventure with, in the journey that she took up again for herself, and to refasten herself to the road, to be able to take on the responsibility again that was tasked to her, and to be the nomad that she was meant to be, and that she could find all the things that she was missing in those around her, in the world, that the world, while the people closest to her were long gone, that Eberron was full of the same kinds of people, just by different names, who could meet the needs that she needed to provide her the comfort and the guidance and the love. And when she finally closed that door for the last time, and she put that tin away, did she realize that that was what needed to be done? And she was all the better for it, having both the strength and the ability to rise above something that could have been so easy for her, into maintaining this life, this thing, this cycle that she had put herself in. But in the act of letting go and returning to what she knew how to do best, was ultimately the thing that makes this moment successful. And that she's reminded that while she is always a strong individual, that this was a moment of weakness, but weaknesses are meant to be overcome, and she did overcome them. And once again, we return back to the manifestation. We return to the howl of the Blade Desert and the kicking up of sand against this tent, and a father, Ron Goldentail, who continues to look on at Cyote and provides an understanding beyond comprehension, a level of empathy and openness that she knew her father possessed, but the sensations that radiate on him run much deeper than before. And it's hard to tell if it was something that he had always possessed, or in this absence of it, being reminded of the sensation, it breeds a deeper connection to it. But assured, Cyote knows that they are not alone. And with that, let us go ahead and pull our final card. The Queen of Hearts. Hearts are soul tethers about people or companions or things of the soul. And the Queen of Hearts, the Queen of Hearts is a sibling that has a strained relationship. And luckily enough, Cyote has a sibling, one sibling who also survived what happened in Kubara. Ari Swift-Heart. Ari was such a small child when it happened. So young that he doesn't quite recall the events that happened there, the events that took so much from him, not just in family and in future, but physically as well, as those Silver Flame zealots chose to harm him in a way that where he lost part of his left hand, and he has grown up all of his life without it. And Cyote, an older sibling turned parent in this moment, had to raise Ari from such a small time, and Ari is a rabbit shifter, and he's known to change the color of his hair and fur depending on the season. And in the winter he is white as snow, but during the summer it fades away into this rich brown that just matches these big brown eyes that he has, and the very long loppish ears that he has tucked away in the hat that he liked to wear. And Cyote and Ari always had a decent relationship, but as Ari grew older, what caused a lot of strain in their relationship was that eventually Cyote at some point took Ari to the Eldine Reach, where most of the shifter population who didn't take up the nomadic life of travel like her tribe did, and she had left him there for a time, because Ari, being the second born child, was required to learn druidic magic. And while Cyote possessed some magic abilities, she could not truly teach him the skill that he was responsible for. And if he was really going to be on the journey with her, he needed to learn these lessons and learn them quickly. And the strain came in because it was such an impressionable time in Ari's life where he questioned whether or not he really needed the journey, and felt resentment in almost feeling like being abandoned by the only family that he had. And every time Cyote left to go and take on escort missions to raise money to pay for the schooling, or her being months away in between going out on adventures and doing and remaining on the journey, it just made this rift between them, where Ari started on his own, having to build his life within the Eldine, and questioned whether or not he needed to return to the journey, that maybe this wasn't for him. And Cyote being ever persistent in making sure that he did, because it was her responsibility to make sure that he had acquired the proper knowledge, and that and it just became a constant butting of heads and exchanging of words, and some of those moments were not as kind as they could have been, in trying to make someone understand the reasoning behind the choices that are being made, at the same time trying to also understand the hardship of the one who spends so much time waiting. And it was just a hard thing that both of them had to deal with for that stage of life that they had found themselves in. And it was really tough. And with that, let us roll the dice. And that is a 1. Just going hard back and forth. So 1 means an automatic failure, which is 1 to my failed progress, and a return of the spite that was wagered away. And I think ultimately what failure kind of looks like is wishing that Ari could understand the reasons why. And the reasons were placed in the grief that Cyote carried with them. That ultimately Cyote wasn't enough. Cyote had things that she could absolutely teach Ari. She could teach Ari to fight, and she could teach Ari to wield the bow in the way that she did. And he was very skilled at archery. And she could teach him how to be in the world, to be able to guide him through the trails and roads, and be able to be a survivor in the world. But there was so much more that she couldn't teach him, simply because those were not her responsibilities to have. And because those were responsibilities that were a part of the collective that made up this community that they came from the, you know, and how to get somebody to understand that who is going to teach him the songs that need to be taught when those who held the songs in their hearts are gone? Who is going to tattoo his journey on his skin for all the moments that he succeeds in if there are no tattoo makers to do it? Who is supposed to nurture him when their mother isn't there anymore? Who is supposed to guide him when their father is gone? All of these people that made up our family isn't there to give him these things, and Cyote certainly couldn't provide it either, and this was the next best solution, because the biggest fear that Cyote has and still has is that even if he chose to not pursue the journey, that one day the journey would call for him. And if he was not ready to take up and go, then as the head and leader of this people, she has ultimately failed in her purpose. And I think that's ultimately what it is that hurts so much, is that all she wants is for him to be ready to make the choices and decisions that he has planned, that he wants to do in his life. And now that she is gone and he is alone in this world, what will he have? And will it be enough? And will he be strong enough to take up what ultimately he was made to do? And it's, again, like losing family. It's so unfair, because if things were different, Ari's path would have been different. And how can the journey be so unfair and so unkind for someone who chose to follow it to the greater extent? And that when we lose community and culture, those who survive lose the opportunity to carry on the beautiful things that were offered. A simple life that was filled with much love and song and dance and all sorts of culture, just wiped away by the hate of others. And how do you fix that? And how do you make that right? And how do you put that back on track? And are we just destined to lose everything in the end? And that no one will remember the beautifulness of what was made by a people, and we're just supposed to watch it turn to dust and turn to ash and turn to nothing and be nothing? How can that be fair? How can that be right? How can others deny us a future that we deserve to have because we exist? And it's something that you want to hold on to, and you want, and it makes it just so hard to let go in the end. And it is such a heavy, enraging feeling that just sits in the heart and sets it on fire and makes it almost impossible to let go. And as Cyote is just in their manifestation, the howl of the wind isn't so loud here than the rage that is felt deep in their soul as they look on to a father who continues to remain so open and so receptive to all of this feeling, to recognize the moments where we do not have control, to see the items in which we bury our grief in, and the shortcomings that come from not having the community and the resources to carry on a legacy that deserved to exist. And with tears forming and rage rattling in Cyote's heart, I think that's when Ron, her father, stands up from where he was sitting across of them and approaches Cyote, and Cyote looks up at him, and he puts just the most gentlest of hands on her shoulders, and such a big hand that kind of rests there, and you can feel its weight with him barely applying any pressure to it. And then he heads out and he opens the tent and continues to walk, and there's a feeling and sensation of I should follow. And Cyote gets up and heads that way. And we enter into what is known as the crossing. The crossing is a place that goes into multitudes of directions. It can be it could be airports, it could be bus stations, it could be places like portals and pools, somewhere in which one must definitively make a decision. And I think for Cyote, as they open that tent flap and they exit, they reach a crossroad on the road. And one place leads towards the Mournlands in Kovar, and the other one leads on somewhere far beyond the horizon. And Braun just kind of stands with her at that crossroad, kind of looks at her and gives her the notion that one needs to make a decision here and now of what we do at this part of the journey. And there's two ways we can handle it. One is through reflection, where we look at the successes and failures and spite that's been made, and we make a definitive decision. And the other one is contested, which we will leave it up to the dice to guide us by rolling D4 pools and seeing what those results help in the act of making this decision. But I think the best one for me, at least, will be reflection. And Cyote has earned themselves 1 success, 2 failures, and spite. I think, despite the failures, Cyote lived a very long life. and one that was unimaginably full despite it all. And despite such a loss that they had to kind of spend a lot of that time overcoming, in the end, they were successful in understanding what the journey was supposed to be for them. And again, they found love and purpose and a better understanding of the world through the journey that they had to take. And while it was a bit lonely, and while it was a bit unfortunate in many places, she helped a lot of people in the end. And she did right by her brother in the way that she felt was the best thing to do for him. And she found all of the love that she lost again in others, in the world. And that is what the journey is about. The goods, the bads, the things in between, the things that hurt us and bring us jubilation. That is the journey. That is our purpose, to go into the world and make something of ourselves despite the things we lack. And many of the knowledge that she held by the people who loved her and guided her and nurtured her were in the end given to others. And they were able to take those things and make something of them from themselves. And that's all we can do, is to take what we have and put it like a seed into the earth and allow it to grow and allow it to spread like roots and allow it to touch as many as we can. And even if there's fear mixed into it, the fear of uncertainty that comes from not understanding what futures might be, we leave that up to the journey. Because even if whatever remains of this legacy is not ready for the call of the journey will still call him, and he will have to make of it the best he can with what he was given, and perhaps will find the same conclusions that Cyote eventually found for them in the end. And that has to be enough, and it will be enough. Because here and now, we are waiting for the next part of the journey. Because the journey is not over, it has just begun, but just in a new way. And for Cyote, this is letting go. This is saying, my time here was done. I've done all I can with what I had. And now it is time to take this new journey beyond. And I hope that journey is met by the people she so desperately wishes to be with. And she looks at her father, and he is grabbed 2 mountable companions, his horse that but for Cyote, he brings forth this silver ibex, Scion, who was her companion in life, the one that helped her traverse the world. And it's long horns and this hard and silveryish fur that seemed to create light sounds of jingling, as if coins were being rubbed up against each other. And he hands her off to them and mounts his own steed. And eventually Cyote, after stroking a bit on Zion's face, mounts her as well. And they both look to the Mournlands, this desolate place. But then begins to make the correction to head the other way, to walk down the other path, to take the other part of this journey. And she won't be alone this time. Or she'll be with someone that she deeply missed, and hopefully leading her home. Because the journey is long and the journey is wide, but most importantly, the journey is full. And it is full of the collection of moments that we get, good or bad. And we have to be grateful for whatever time allots us. It is a part of the grand design. And what lessons we take from it, and more importantly, what we give back to the world, is what defines our time in the living. And it will always be enough. And as two riders travel the road and ride all the way into the horizon, I think that is where we're going to end this story today of Cyote Sandfoot, the great nomad. Hell yeah. Well, thank you all for joining today on this solo session of Ghostfi. One of the cooler features of Ghostfi is its flexibility, its ability to be able to be guided in the many previous episodes that you've seen, but its ability to be one that can be very uniquely personal to ourselves as solo sessions, or as a solo session. So if you like Ghostfi, be sure to check it out on the Gumroad in the links descriptive below. This was a game I wrote in 2022 as an opportunity to allow writers and storytellers alike to be able to connect to characters in unique ways, to be able to give love to their creations that they put their hearts and souls in, and to give them proper goodbyes when all is said and done, and the final chapters need to be written. So if you like this, I encourage you to grab yourself a copy and see what Ghostfi can do for you today. This is a series of 13 ghosts telling stories, wonderful storytellers who have brought so many amazing characters to the table to be able to do the same thing, to reconnect to the characters they made and give them the love that they deserve, and say goodbye to them in such a beautiful way. So be sure to check out those episodes and give love to the 6 amazing guests who also came to the table outside of the members here at Mayday. But until then, Please stay well, and we will see you again very soon.